Hello and welcome to the Fervent 4. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? You know what? I've said that a lot. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the intro today. We're just going to get right into this because I can't memorize it. I can barely read right now. I've never done that out of all the episodes. Tim's confused. He thought he had 17 more seconds. I threw him off.
I know. I would rather save these 17 seconds for conversation with
exactly.
Allison.
I mean, the viewers they're like, another intro, Zach. Come on, you can't read. Okay, so I'm interested in this. So if people are watching, they can see this. If they are listening from the podcast perspective, they won't see this. But we have our names kind of titled as a lower third, if you will, on the broadcast of this. For me, it says my handle. So at Zack Miller says, it says Tim Ryan at Ryan TNT, and for you, it says Comedian Allison Moore.
Hey y'all. So, hey.
Hello. So I'm interested in. Is that like, do you brand yourself as Comedian Allison Moore? Is that the title? How does that whole thing go, or is it just happenstance?
I know the answer to this question, and I want to see if it's changed. But
okay,
well, I did some Google searching to do some research on Allison Moore, and if you click on the wrong Allison Moore, then it's not a good thing. So you got to put the comedian Allison Moore in there. Is that accurate, Allison?
Yes, absolutely. So the comedian piece is definitely one of my very important that it happens that way, because if people are searching for me, they might get distracted. I share the same name as a famous adult entertainer, and that is just not what I'm offering. So I try to differentiate myself in this market. So just in case people who are looking for me can find me.
We're 2 minutes into the show, and we've already had the first lesson learned about differentiating yourself from the rest of the market.
It is interesting that you said that. I didn't know that. So in my book, I talk about that, like people who have famous names who don't, who you know, like an Allison Moore perspective, if you Google that and it's the wrong person, you go see the wrong person. Eric J. Olson, someone who was a guest on the show many moons ago, he used to just go by Eric Olson. Then he realized that there was someone super popular in the world named Eric Olson, so he added the J, which I think is actually his middle name, the J into his name. And many other people have done that, something like that as well. I don't think I've ever seen, you know, someone add their style of work, comedian Allison Moore into it. But so that's interesting. Was that a hard thing to come by? How did you?
I mean, no, I'm a comedian, so
you just said, screw it, let's go.
Yeah, it just makes it. And then, okay, so there's like a couple of pieces, and I'm trying to get my ADHD brain to stay on which one of these streets to turn down with you guys. First of all, thank you
forgot
for
the D in
me.
ADHD. I just
and that's likely. I might forget a couple of words on this episode, so be ready to edit this side.
Okay,
to help us sister out. But first of all, thank you guys for having me. I've been so looking forward to this. I mean, no pressure, Tim. I know we had talked about some time before saying, hey, want to be on the show, but you guys got such a big deal type of show, you know, so you just want to show up. And so I'm really excited to be here and to meet the audience, and then also you, sir, my new best friend. So thank you so much for having me. Yay. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, so the comedian Allison Moore place. So let me see. Zach trying to take me down a couple of streets here. See, I'm not always threatened by people sharing the same name. I just think that it is the person that I'm competing with. Her content is so compelling that I would forget what I was going to search for if I was looking for a comedian Allison Moore. Like, you know, somebody is saying, hey, we want to have a comedian at our event or a speaker. I heard about this comedian person. Let's see. What's her name? Allison Moore. Oh, shoot. It does not matter if that's what you're interested in or not. I just think it's probably 90% likely that you will forgot. How did I get here? You either get sucked in or you completely want to get out, but so I just try to add.
Does that happen though, where people do that? Because I mean, if I didn't know of the person, right, and I did do a Google search, it would be very likely that would come up, right? I mean,
yes and no. Yes and no. It's not really. I haven't had anybody tell me, "Oh my God, girl, I was looking for you," and Well, I'm answering your question. I believe that it happens, but see, I add to it because it's really funny. So, like, I am a stand-up comedian. I do perform on stage, and I lean into the irony. I'm a clean comedian, which means I don't curse or use profanity or talking vulgarity on stage. And secondly, it's a very interesting story. Like, I play a lot of play. By play, I mean I do material or events. For corporate America, I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in business and HR. That was my space before I came over into entertainment full time. So I play a lot of corporate events. I do churches. The irony that also I share the same name with a porn star, and it's a white woman, and I'm not either, is just funny. And it's content that it's like, you got to deal with that pink elephant in the room, especially if somebody did say, "Oh, who's coming to the event? Let's Google her." And like, "Oh, wait a minute. I don't think
Perfect
this is
storm.
who they're bringing us." Yeah, but let me add to it. So, one of my side hustle pieces of my business is I sell coffee. So I have a coffee business, and the name of the business is Black Please. And that kind of happened because, again, I do comedic speaking, and I do a lot of corporate events. So I'm doing one, and they would bring me in the morning. I'm like, "Why y'all bringing me in the morning?" And they're like, "Well, Allison, you're so funny to open up the Doctors Association conference, or to do the such and such, first thing in the morning. You started out, the speakers follow. It's a great event. People are laughing for this all day event or whatever." So then I just started to lean into it, like, "Oh, you guys are using me to be the coffee around here to wake everybody up. Comedian Allison Moore, your conference is coffee." And then one day I was on stage, and they're like, "Yeah, that was amazing, Allison. We just love you. Oh my God, your personality is great. This is, yeah, you're perfect to wake everybody up." So then I'm like, "So y'all must like your coffee black." Boom, cha. And so then people are like, "Oh, wow, that is so witty." So that then made me say, with my entrepreneurial or creative brain, "Oh, I should go ahead and sell some coffee because I'm doing these speaking engagements in the morning. Instead of saying I'm going to write a book that I ain't wrote in 2 years, I keep lying about that. Then I'm going to just go ahead and sell some coffee." And that turns out that was the dumbest thing that I could have did, because selling the coffee coffee business is hard. Shout out to Tim, because I didn't even recognize what I was putting myself into until the pitch competition. I was there thinking about pitching, which, I'm like, "Oh, pitching is just telling your story. I could do that. I'm funny. I'm a storyteller. I got that." And then I get there, it's like, "Girl, that." And even in, I share with you some of the feedback and the energy that I got, and I tag that to the audience, because I get different responses depending on people's implicit biases and things about me having the business coffee, or the coffee business name Black Please, because I'm a Black woman. But even aside from that, I didn't have a handle on the business model. Like, the people who were sincerely like, "Man, we really like her. This is really cool. But so what is the business?" I'm like, "Coffee." So, okay, great. So you're going to have a coffee shop. You got beans.
Right.
No. Do you know anything about coffee? No. Where are you going to get the coffee from? I don't know. But isn't it a cool name? Isn't it a fantastic story? And I pitched it. You're like, "No, girl.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna help. You went to Norfolk State. Why don't you go brush some of 20-year ago energy off your brain and revisit an entrepreneurial program?" So there, I got connected. Blake from Ferguson, shout out to him. He was like, "What? Norfolk State University have an innovation center. Why
Hmm.
don't you? Aren't you an alum?" I was like, "Yeah, but I was there I wasn't really there for the education when I was 18. It turns out I should have been paying attention, but I didn't." So I went there, got connected with them, met Jim Franklin and company over at the Innovation Center. Shout out to them. I love them. And so then I kept running back into you, Tim. So that's my story. So that's what I've been up to since last
Yeah.
time I saw you.
And gosh, it's been a couple years since we first met.
Yes,
First met.
because we've been in the pandemic for 2 years.
That, yeah, which seems like a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh,
It's
for the
probably almost a year before.
taping of this, right? What is it? Omicron is in full strength right now.
Mm-hmm.
So fingers crossed that level heads will prevail. But
Mm-hmm.
gosh, there's a lot of stuff that I want to catch up with you
Okay.
about. And the first thing was that caught my attention was the phrase, or the word edutainment. Is that something that you created, or is that something that you were like, "That's exactly what I do. I'm going to take it and run with it"?
I don't want to say I created it. because I just know that it was already there before, but I do want to be known at some point when people start thinking edutainment that I come to the top of
Yeah.
their mind, because maybe I was in the beginning of it being a very popular or sought out style of the sharing of information. And I
Hmm.
feel like for me, just in my own real learning styles, it's just I will better pay attention, better embrace it, better understanding if it just has some element of entertainment to it. Like there's some good content that I needed to know. I could not get through it because it was like, shoot me. And then I start,
Well,
I
exactly. I mean,
you got it.
especially, I mean, when we look at what you do from a business standpoint, aside from the coffee side, I mean, the thought of going through, all right, it's time for annual diversity
Yes.
training. Yeah, everyone. That's when everyone wishes they had COVID because
Like,
they don't want to be
please.
around for it.
Please, yes.
Whereas I'm assuming based on the edutainment phrase and term that is something that, hey, you can put a funny spin, an educational spin, and to me, you know, myself and other people, they can remember like every line from a comedy movie or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Yes.
and people might actually learn something from your message as opposed to the dull PowerPoint that everyone has to go through every year. Is that
Yes.
accurate in
Yes.
saying that?
Yeah, I'm like, this is recorded, right? You gonna let me get this? Because boy, did you just lay this out for us, Sister Tim. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly, whereas I felt like this was a problem that I can solve. And then in some spaces, I realized, like, man, I was created to solve this problem, and a little bit of both. But definitely that, I have some jokes that and I ran into a lady the other day who she saw me when I first started performing. This was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And she was like, girl, I remember this. I remember what you said. And she repeated the joke. Now she botched the whole joke, which I was like, girl, lady, ooh, that's my work. That's my work. Get the words right. But more important, when you put your pride aside, then it's like, well, you made somebody laugh and they still remember, girl, this is still a win, right? So I'm like, wow. But how many opportunities before I came to this revelation of recognizing somebody gonna remember what you're saying, make it worth remembering. Like,
Mhm.
don't give up that mental real estate. I mean, I can't even remember the password I created this morning, let alone,
Password one.
right. That is what I need to do. But then I forget which one am I doing, password one or password 01. And then by the time I figure that out, I mess it up. But I realize, man, this is a beautiful opportunity to leave a mark, be helpful. If you use your gift of, you can tell a story, you can captivate your audience with, lead them with something to think about later that's really valuable. So then that way, if you need to borrow some money, then you can call them
Well,
and say,
Can I
especially
remember I
borrow?
now
made you
when
Can I
laugh?
borrow? Can I borrow some money?
You
when
gotta make me laugh.
tension is so high right now and has been for so long, where I think that being able to laugh and put some of that pressure aside is really,
Hmm.
really important right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. So I think that that's where kind of I fell into that space as well, because especially diversity right now, it's uncomfortable for people, especially people like that are saying, okay, maybe I do want to learn a bit more about it, but I don't want to leave this situation feeling terrible. I don't, it's,
Mm.
you already gather. It's a lot to do when this, I call it courageous or bravery space, when we're already saying, all right, you know what, maybe I can benefit from sharpening up or listening a little bit more to somebody else. That's some character stuff. That's some mature stuff. That's not easy. So you don't want to take all of that anxiety, energy, and whatever, and then be left feeling depleted, terrible. You want to go cry for 3 days, but at the same time, some of this stuff is ugly. Some of this stuff is weird. How do we get there? So I just feel like, man, I've been graced with the ability to, we gonna call out these pink elephants in the room, but don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out pink elephants ain't even trying to fight. They just weird in the way. Let's look at them. Let's laugh at them. Let's learn from it. Let's move on. We don't got to kill each other. We can grow. We can acknowledge, okay, I was wrong, or okay, I was too embrace it, or just whatever. So I just think that that's something that I'm able to do. And now I'm learning how to make that into a profitable and scalable business, which is how and why I'm so passionate about and pursuing this avenue of like, creating productions like my TV show or my diversity series, because that's where I can get off the art, the talent piece, the fun piece, but then also, scale it, use it multiple different ways, earn income or revenue off of it in multiple different ways, more than just, oh, she was funny and I saw her at that comedy club.
Well, so another question I have is, you mentioned the fact that when you went to school for your undergrad, your graduate programs, business and human resources was a focus. And I would bet that when you go to book shows with different corporations, that if somebody was to pitch HR saying, hey, I have this great idea, we're going to bring a comedian in to talk about diversity, that HR person is probably just pucker factor 200, because they don't want a lawsuit on their hand. But if you have HR, you kind of know the lines in which, how you can straddle those lines, but still make it funny and educational. Is that accurate in saying that as well?
Yes, you're right. Because some people will say, well, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you a comedian, so everybody want to go with you. And I'm like, no, not as much. I really have to emphasize the HR piece, because the comedy piece is very scary for people, which is why I will make a joke and lean into, the irony that I share the same name with the porn star, and then really try to build up equity. But I am the total opposite, okay? So when you think of her, don't think of me. Listen, I will never, ever, ever get y'all sued. You can call me. I know the game. I went to school for this. I owe Sally Mae for this.
Good old Sally. Watch out.
Home office, socially distanced coffee shop, or your fancy, all bricked out corner office, wondering why no one can see your business and sales are all over the place? Sounds like you need a pro. That's why I developed the Anomaly Academy. Insert clever copy here. Oh, I guess I was supposed to put something else there. Oops. You can grab access to the Anomaly Academy now at ZackMillerSays.com/Anomaly Academy.